Hello, everybody. Welcome in to tonight's episode of Strange Appalachia's podcast. We're here going to talk a little bit about Appalachian traditional spiritual wardings and protections and things like that. Ways that you can protect your good luck and keep away the haints, the spirits, and all that good stuff for this coming Halloween season. We are joined by a special guest tonight. I'll go ahead and let Charlie introduce him.
Yeah, our guest tonight's a good buddy of ours. I've pretty much known him my entire life, and that's Josh Bowling. He's going to be our resident geologist here at Strange Appalachia. Uh, got anything you need to say, Josh?
Hey guys, what's up?
All right. Well, glad to hear from Josh. Going to be hearing a lot more from him as we move forward. So that's going to be an exciting addition to our cast here. So with that being said, let's go ahead and move into some of the stuff we were able to find on spirit protection and things of that nature. Charlie.
Yeah, so most of the spiritual protections, as we're saying, come from an Irish tradition of Scottish. Since that's primarily who settled in the Appalachian Mountains. And it's weird because they're pretty common throughout. Different communities tend to share these. So if you go into one community and you start talking about it, they're going to know exactly what you're talking about, even if you're from a different community. So one of the first ones, and this is one that I still practice to this day. I don't know why, other than it's a superstition. But one of the first ones I want to talk about is you never leave a funeral the same way you came to a funeral. So you always find a different path back home. And supposedly this will confuse a spirit or a ghost of someone who's recently passed enough so that they won't follow you, they won't linger, and it'll help them transition over. You ever heard of that one, JD?
I have, like you said, it's one that we routinely do, and I'm pretty sure it's one that we may have mentioned somewhere along the way on this podcast before. Don't think that one is a first time mention on here. But I've always found that a lot of these spiritual protections, and more so as we researched this, I found a lot of the more obvious ones. Um, I don't think I found quite as many as you did, but a lot of them have to deal with things that you need to do um, as far as around a funeral or near someone who has recently passed to help ease their transition into the afterlife. So the take a different route home from a funeral um, is one. Uh, Going back to when people used to stay up with the dead, one of the ones I found, somebody dies, you stay up however many nights it is with them. I don't remember. Um,
Three. You,
three
you
nights.
stay. Yeah, most people think it's three. Sometimes it's just one night.
Yeah.
It's a wake, and I can remember going to one wake as a child. That's a tradition that's pretty much fell by the wayside. You never see that anymore.
Yeah. But going back to the wakes and times just after somebody has passed, you're supposed to cover all the mirrors in the house so that the spirit doesn't get lost moving back and forth through the house and get lost by looking in a mirror. I also found a couple where it was talking about not leaving toys and things like that out so they don't stop and play with the toy. So a lot of stuff to make sure that the soul doesn't linger or isn't trapped or confused after death.
Yeah, one of the big ones I saw was you have to open every window in a home, and that way there's nothing to impede the soul from leaving, like windows.
Hmm.
So that's a pretty interesting one. Um, as far as protections go, the color blue comes up a lot, especially in the South Carolina, Georgia area. I know down around Savannah they have a color and they call it haint blue, and they'll tell you because it ain't quite blue and it ain't quite green, but they will actually paint any type of overhang like a porch or eaves. They'll paint anything above a doorway in that color blue, and supposedly the spirit can't cross the threshold. Um, Keeping with that blue theme, supposedly if you have blue glass panes in a window, that will stop a spirit from coming through the window.
And I think going back to what we were mentioning a minute ago, the blue glass panes in the window stopping a spirit from entering is one of the reasons, or one of the at least original places where leaving the windows open comes from. Because if it keeps them from coming in, it would also keep them from going out. So, there's that correlation there. Um, but one of the things I was thinking of with that, as far as sort of a more natural thing, because, obviously, I don't know that the color blue really does anything at all. If indeed a spirit is going to stick around, I don't think the color blue of all things is going to, you know, do anything to either aid or stop its journey. But I wonder if it's, blue is a color that's normally associated with, making you feel peaceful, making you feel, you know, more at ease. If that's got something to do with it, if it's not so much for the spirit as it is for the people looking at it.
Yeah, it sounds to me like that would be a good thought, because obviously at these funerals people are going to be upset,
Mm-hmm.
and so something to bring calm to the family. Um, I know that burning of sage, that's one thing that tends to be in all cultures, but the
Mm-hmm.
Appalachian Mountains, they burning of sage, burning of rosemary, anything that has an odor or a good smell to it will supposedly repel evil spirits. And I know that, I've talked about it before, but sage has natural antifungal properties. And so if you go into a house and you burn sage, it tends to kill the fungus and tends to kill the mold and mildews. And a lot of times molds and mildews can cause people to hallucinate.
Yeah.
So,
Um,
cleansing evil spirits, it could be doing that, but more than likely it sounds like it's just going to clear out the mold and mildew that's in the air.
yeah, and again, like I was talking about with the color blue, it could lend itself to a little bit of, making you feel less stressed, helping you sort of relax a little bit. And also, again, going back to the wake thing, it's probably going to help that body not smell as bad in the long run.
Yeah.
So that's got to be an added bonus to the burning of any of those aromatic herbs that you're talking about there.
Yeah. Um, some other stuff that I've read up on. You don't let this is one I've heard from a childhood, but I've not seen it in a long time. Kind of forgot about it, but you don't let a rocking chair continue rocking after you leave, because that invites spirits to ride on the rocking chair.
And you don't walk by and rock a rocking chair if you're not in it either. That's one that I've heard several times as well, for sure.
Of course, there's the horseshoe. You always put a horseshoe above your door, and
Hmm.
it'll collect luck. And you have to make sure it's upside down. Is that right, or right side up?
Yes, upside down so it catches it and holds it.
Yeah, so it won't leak out. That's a pretty good one, and that's straight from Ireland.
Hmm.
Um, that's an extremely Irish myth. Um, I found a lot of stuff about potatoes.
Say
Um,
that again. You broke up just a little bit.
I found a lot of stuff about potatoes. Um,
Again, makes
crazy.
sense with an Irish background.
Yeah. So supposedly, if there's a spirit on your property and you know the person, you can hollow out a potato. You can put an article of clothing or an item that the spirit owned in the potato, and then you can bury the potato, and the spirit has to hang around the potato until it passes over. I don't understand it. Like so many of these myths, they made sense to the people that did them, but to us, why would a spirit hang around a potato? I can't tell you.
Yeah.
Another one is you can make potato soup or a potato meal for a spirit and present it at the table. You leave it out all night, and then the next morning you respectfully put it into a bag, and then you bury it in the cemetery where the person was buried. And now the spirit's not allowed to leave the cemetery until they pass over.
Hmm.
So, it doesn't make any sense to us, but that's a pretty good myth, I think.
Yeah. And of course, you got all your your normal go tos if you've ever watched Supernatural or any of those sort of ghost hunting TV shows. Um, Maybe not ghost hunting TV shows as far as reality goes, but more of the fictional ones, I guess, is the better way of saying that. Lines of salt somewhere is probably the most common. Lines of salt are supposed to stop spirits from entering or crossing a threshold. And again, why salt has that property and sugar doesn't, or pepper doesn't, or something like that, who knows?
Uh,
Um,
it's funny. I actually know where that comes from. The lines of salt.
go
That
for
that myth is extremely old. It dates back about 4,000 years, back to about 2,000 years Roman society
All
and
right,
ancient
you broke up
society.
there.
And at the time, the price of salt was worth as much as gold. And so, if you spilled salt, or something happened with salt, it was thought that somebody put a hex on you, and you lost your salt. And so, we get a lot of myths like throwing the salt over your shoulder if you spill it.
Hmm.
Supposedly, take your right hand and you throw over your left shoulder, and it will ward away any evil spirit. Well, the myth now that we have where salt wards away spirits comes directly from that. So that's a pretty good myth too. Very old.
Yeah, and you said that was from Roman times.
Yeah, Roman and Greek.
Okay, sort of broke up on that particular part, but
Yeah, I'm having some internet issues tonight. Maybe I need to burn some sage or something to get the internet to work better.
yeah, maybe you got some ghosts in your machine there.
Yeah, there's a lot of these myths. There's a lot of of course, a lot of these myths are pagan as well. And
You broke
the
up again.
excuse me,
You broke up again.
a lot of these myths, I'm saying, a lot of these myths are considered pagan as well. And so, no good pagan myth would be worth its weight if it didn't have a broom associated with it. A lot of times, you can take what is called a traditional shaker's broom or an Appalachian broom, and you could sweep a spirit out of a house, and you could use it. It says any thorny shrub or brushwood could be used for that, and sorghum was particularly applied. So
Yeah, and there's several other Appalachian myths or traditions about not sweeping under somebody's feet, stuff like that again go back to the broom and sweeping things away.
yeah, and I mean it all comes back. The witches supposedly flew around on brooms. I mean,
It always comes back to the witches or
yeah,
aliens, one of the two.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's there's a lot of witchcraft traditions in an Appalachian society. Especially coming from the Irish background.
Hmm.
There's a lot of pagan traditions that Appalachian society has that I guess they'll be around forever.
Yeah, I mean, especially hopefully with podcasts like this one and other people like us out there, trying to keep some of these stories and traditions around. I hope they don't go away anytime soon because they are definitely entertaining and even if they don't help, it's something interesting to talk about at the very least.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed digging into this topic. Um,
And what's funny is, as a disclaimer here, Charlie is telling you most of these stories because the research I was doing, I kept coming up with the same books and things that it wanted me to buy, and that wasn't really what I was looking for. So I wasn't able to come up with many of these, but Charlie has found several of these and known several of these sort of from memory that I wasn't able to find. So that's always interesting.
Here's another one that I found, and I want to talk about this earlier. But there's a tradition, and it's a, believe it or not, a voodoo tradition, but I've seen it practiced a few times in the Appalachian Mountains, and they call them bottle trees. And you'll
Mm.
see every now and then, you don't see them like you used to. that'll have glass bottles hanging on it, and that's directly from voodoo. A lot of practitioners of voodoo will use that, but somehow we in the Appalachian Mountains managed to incorporate it into our traditions as well.
Yeah, that's definitely one. I've never seen it, actually practiced, but I did come across that one in a couple of different places. Uh, trapping spirits in bottles or things of that nature to keep them out of a house for
The
sure.
the last one I saw actually was in East Stone Gap. Um, so on one of the back roads, we came across a bottle tree one day.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was probably 9 or 10 years old,
Huh.
and I remember asking Mom about it, and she said it keeps the ghost away.
Yeah. Hope it worked for him.
Yeah, it probably did. I'm guessing.
All
So
right.
I guess that's everything
Anything
for the
else you want
night.
to add in?
No, that's everything I've got for the night.
All right. Well, as always, I want to encourage people to check us out on Facebook and here on YouTube. Give us a like and subscribe if you like what you hear. Want to thank our special guest tonight for his input. Josh is always a knowledgeable source. Um, so yeah, check us out. If you've got any other ideas of things that you would like to hear us talk about, or a story that you would like to share with the for the greater good here, we're always happy to hear from you.
Yep, I guess that's everything. See y'all later.
All right.